Item 1, just a reminder to all members and officers, the meeting has been recorded. Please ensure your phones are switched off to silent for the duration of the meeting. If you've got something to say, please use your electric hand, and if you're voting, please use your electronic hand as well to help the officers count the votes. Translations available for this meeting through the interpretation button in Teams if you need it. And as this chair's announcements, and we've got our brand new Chief Operating Officer, Chris Owen, here on his second day in the job. I'd like to welcome Chris formally to his role and wish you every success with it. And good luck. Today, we promise we'll be gentle today as well. So there we are. Thank you. And I have no other announcements. You'll be delighted to hear. So we're going to move to item 2 on the agenda and ask for any declarations of interest. So are there any declarations of interest? If you have any, could you please raise your hand now?
I can't see any indications, Chair.
I can't see any, Alison. No, never mind. Okay. Well, probably for the best, I suppose, actually. Here we are. Moving on. Item 3, we've got the minutes. So take them together. So we've got the 2 meetings held on the 13th and the 19th. Hope everyone's had a chance to review them. And does anyone have any comments? Oh, Michael, Councillor John, sorry, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, I'm okay with the 13th, but I wasn't there for the 19th, so I'll abstain on the 19th. But I'm happy to move the 13th. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. So noting that abstention on those, we all happy to accept the minutes. Anyone? Yeah, there's no comments, so I think we accept the minutes with that noted from Councillor John. Thank you. Good. Right, so we can move to item 4, which is our Q3 financial monitoring 25-26. Have we got Steve is going to go through that, or is it Chris?
It's me.
You're there, Steve?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Chair. Yep.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So this report for information was seen by Joint Committee in January and by the Governance and Audit Subcommittee at the end of January. So, as always, I'd like to start by drawing attention to the Appendix A on page 27 of the report pack, or page 5 of the actual report. As you can see that the reserves, the year-end position is showing an underspend of 315.4 thousand for the year. So this will be then transferred to the CJC reserve at year end. This is very similar to what we were projecting in Q1 and Q2. So the reasons for the underspend are very similar to what I said previously in previous reports. So looking at the support services, the position of the senior accountant post that's still vacant, so we save in £49,000 per year for that one. So as you know, the CJC, it's still in its relative infancy, so this post is not needed at the moment. The subcommittees, if you look at that section in the appendix, is showing an overspend of 121,000. So this is in part due to £200,000 worth of Welsh Government grant spend for the RTP, but then there's underspends in the planning and programme management category of about 70k and a small underspend of about 10,000 in the energy subcommittee. The planning and strategic planning subcommittee has appointed the senior planning officer to develop the strategic development plan. This is being funded through the planning and programme management line within the subcommittee budgets, with a cost of around 40,000 for this year. The regional investment strategy, this is being procured at a cost of about 75,000. 40,000 of this will be funded through the economic development subcommittee, and the remaining 35,000 will be funded from the consultancy and specialist advisor budget within the regional management office, which leads me nicely on to the regional management office. This is showing an overspend of about 63,000 for the year. 34,000 of which are due to the appointment of Chris as the Chief Operating Officer, who began this week. There's additional 30,000 for the UK Reef event 20,000 for the region green economy event. So as I noted earlier, £35,000 worth of the consultancy and specialist advisor budget's going to be wired up to the Economic Development Subcommittee to fund the regional investment strategy. So this leaves an underspend of about 19,000 in that budget line, and you'll see there's some small underspends in translations and printing categories. If you move on down then to the funding contribution section, you can see there's two £200,000 Welsh Government grants. So that one is for the development of the capability or capacity and capability of the CJC, and the other one is 200,000 for the RTP, which I mentioned earlier. So just to point out, when we set the budgets in January last year, we weren't aware of these grants. And then at the very bottom of the appendix, you'll see the brought forward balance for the previous year, the expected interest earned on our current balance for the year, leaves us a reserve balance, or adding in the underspend, sorry, leaves us a forecast reserve balance of about 1.338 million. As you'll notice this year, we haven't had to use reserves due to the underspends mentioned above. So if I just quickly talk about these reserves, they are reasonably substantial. However, when the budgets for the CJC was set in January this year for the forthcoming 3 years, we're planning to use about 550,000 of this over the next 3 years to support the subcommittees. And also there's a potential further 200,000 to 300,000 potentially being made available to the strategic planning support over the next year, which then would reduce our reserves after 3 years to around about 500,000 to 600,000. So that's my quick summary of the Q3 financials, Chair. I'm open for any questions or observations. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stephen. That's a very thorough review of that. Much appreciated. Has anyone got any questions? Can't see any. Oh yes, Councillor John. Here we are. Just in time. No, I was nearly about to move on. You caught me.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just a comment again, really. I mean, I know in Pembrokeshire, other councils have just gone through the budget setting, and we're all struggling for money, and then we see sort of that much money in reserves, appreciating it's earmarked a lot of it, but people on the outside looking at it would think we're just setting up money just to pay for committees which are talking and not doing a lot. So until we see things moving forward, I know the regional transport plan has gone forward, and the spatial plan is later in the agenda, which we'll discuss, and we'll be told then that we're behind other authorities, which there we are. But I think people on the outside looking in will see this as just money supporting committees, to be honest. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor John. I'll take that as a comment. And yeah, I think we have noted, I'm not sure, Chris, if you've had a chance to see some of the letters we've sent previously from the subcommittee to the CJC expressing some concerns in the past over the financial position, but as it's only day 2 for you, I'm not going to expect a response. I just thought it's noted. Councillor John, thank you for that. Okay, so unless there's anything else, I'll move on to item 5. Okay, Alison, we'll move on to item 5 then. So with item 5, we're expecting Helen to come in, hopefully, please, to give an overview of the regional investment strategy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Diolch, Cadeirydd. We have with us today Amian Consulting, John from Amian Consulting, who is going to go through the strategy prospectus and the evidence base with you. But I just want to give you some background before I bring John in. We commissioned Amian Consulting back in October, firstly to undertake a draft investment prospectus based on evidence, and also to start drafting a strategy. The draft investment prospectus was produced in a very short amount of time, and that in order to meet the 1st of December investment summit, which was held in Newport. So as far as the rest of the development of the strategy and the prospectus and the evidence base, that has continued in January and February of this year. And we're now at a position where we have a draft final document. So the work itself in this investment strategy has been developed to provide the region with a clear, credible and investor-ready framework for attracting and securing long-term investment. It sets out a unified regional proposition, which is underpinned by evidence and supported by a live pipeline of investable opportunities. It introduces a clear prioritisation framework, a robust governance through the Corporate Joint Committee, and a practical approach to taking projects forward through the live investment pipeline. The intention is to focus on projects that are investable, deliverable, and capable of attracting private and public sector capital. So that's just a general overview of where we are. The intention is, if the CJC does approve the documents in its meeting on the 24th of March, the intention is to launch the strategy and the prospectus in the UK REEF, which is happening up in Leeds on the 18th of May. We hope that this is an event which draws well over 1,000 participants, including key investors, and we feel that that is a very appropriate event in order to launch the prospectus and the strategy. So, John, can I bring you in? Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, and thank you, Chair. If it's okay, I've just got a few slides to run through, which just provide a bit of further detail to what Helen has highlighted there. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. It's trying to load for me anyway. I can't see it yet.
I still can't see it either, Jonathan.
I can see you now. That's progress. Just give it a second.
Okay, that's good. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it now? Sorry. No.
No, nothing.
No, not yet. Oh, there we are. We've got. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, that's a good start. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Borada, what I wanted to just run through then is just a bit of further detail then. So in terms of the deliverables, and Helen mentioned those, there are 4 deliverables. So one is the strategy, which is a strategic roadmap. It outlines those investment objectives, target sectors, some of the constraints, but also an approach for achieving a stated investment vision. There's the prospectus. So as Helen outlined, a bit more of a marketing document. It's designed for external investors. It provides a summary of the strategy, but also the offer of South West Wales and some of those next steps for investors. There's also an evidence base, so that supports both documents, providing rich detail of information around the business base, around the labour market and around the investment landscape. Not only does that evidence base underpin the strategy and prospectus, but it also supports future strategic activity and funding bids. There's also an internal note, and this is for officers, and this is really to outline the next steps for the strategy. Communications can be used for, as a bit of a next steps for some of the alignment of funding, but also events like UK REEF. In terms of the collation of the document, we undertook quite a deep and broad engagement process. So there was a webinar that we hosted at the beginning of the process that had 75 people. that really sort of kicked off the engagement and also a call for projects for the prospectus. We had 2 in-person workshops, one in Llanelli and one in Swansea, that had 45 people attending. We had over 30 one-to-ones with individuals to explore certain dynamics and aspects of the strategy. We had regular meetings with the steering group, but also 2 online workshops with the steering group plus others. To those that have been sort of close to the project and raised sort of interest in it, to develop the strategy further and to really sort of work through some of the next steps. The call for projects was undertaken in November, and I'll talk a bit more about that a bit later on, but that also provided another consultation basis. And since we kicked off some of the governance rounds, we've had further consultation with key organisations, including the colleges, universities, and key employer representative bodies as well. In terms of the strategy and its content, so there is a vision which outlines really the catalyst for growth and the ambition for an investor-facing delivery framework. The strategic missions are aligned with the regional economic delivery plan, so no need to reinvent the wheel here. Let's remain aligned with those strategic missions. But also, as became clear through the call for projects, we received over 45 projects coming through that pipeline, and more than £6 billion worth of investment opportunities through that call for projects. And all of these had a strong alignment with UK and Welsh economic strategic priorities. The pipeline itself then, as said, so you had £6 billion worth of funding attached to it, and a series of projects came forward within that, including big capital projects, including some that you may be familiar with, including flow, CO2 capture, innovation hubs connected to rail industry, marine energy test areas, regional infrastructure investment around EV charging hubs, rail infrastructure, but also skills and business support, so revenue-based projects which are also linked to some of the economic development assets within South West Wales around hospitality, construction, developing capital development, patient finance and renewable energy support. So those projects needed a structured investment framework. So in part because the projects were quite broad, so we need to ensure that they're investment ready, or and if they're not, perhaps they sit somewhere else. For example, do they sit as an economic development objective, or are they something that might sit under the regional employment partnership, education skills partnership instead? So there's a filtering process, so to understand where does it fit, does it have strategic fit for investment? Is there a funding route mechanism? So as Helen outlined, is it public, private, a blend? Do we need to, is this about core inward investment, or is this about investment that is being made within the UK or Wales? We then also provided a prioritisation framework to look at impact, readiness, financial viability, for it to then move forward to formal governance and approval. I would also highlight that the structured investment framework is flexible, in part because we don't know what's around the corner. Some of that could be connected to developments in the context, but it could also be connected to what wider changes that government is making, or future funding mechanisms. So there's flexibility built into the approach around investment. What we've also highlighted as well is an investment fund, a proposed investment fund for South West Wales. So this is sort of moving the conversation on a bit further around this. So what we've benchmarked here is a £1.5 billion investment fund for around 10 years. This is benchmarked against existing funding across the UK, funding that's been received within South West Wales, and also the call for projects and a filtering process, which identified £1.5 billion worth of projects which probably fit the bill for an investment fund. These are projects that probably require fair sort of funding gaps are looking at unlocking delivery and also social value. So an investment fund really that has a mission-led platform that is looking to unlock stall schemes, delivering on strategic ambitions, attracting capital, also delivering on some of those social value and long-term regional transformation goals. Lastly, as Helen outlined, there's a flexible framework around governance. So through the CJC as the core vehicle for the investment strategy, but also drawing upon local authority governance within that. We've also outlined steps to refresh that investable project pipeline, in part because through the process of developing the strategy and the prospectus, many more projects or interested parties came forward. So it's to tap into that interest going forward. And as the next steps outline, investor engagement at events like UK Reef, developing that pipeline further and moving into delivery. So that was a quick run through of the content on the strategy, but and as Helen said, moving into those sort of final stages for sign off, including moving towards some of the refining some of the graphics for UK Reef.
Great, thanks for that, Jonathan. Thanks for sharing that presentation and the information there. Any questions, anyone? Councillor Price, did you have a question on this?
Diolch Cadeirydd. Diolch i'r swyddogion a i Jonathan am y gwaith ar hyn. Mae'n bwysig bod ni yn creu y strategaeth. Mae hwn yn faes cystadleuol. Wrth gwrs, ni'n cystadlu dim jyst yn erbyn rhanbarthau eraill yng Nghymru, ond fel Jonathan sôn, ynglyn â rhanbarthau eraill ar draws Prydain, a mae digwyddiadau fel Reef yn bwysig i ni bod ni'n dangos ac yn gwerthu'n hunain fel rhanbarth. Felly fi'n croesawu'r strategaeth yn fawr. Yr un cwestiwn sydd fi ynglyn â'r cronfa buddsoddi yma o 1.5 biliwn. Fi'n gwybod bod e'n gynnar iawn yn datblygiad y syniad yma, ond allwch chi roi rhyw fath o syniad i ni ynglyn â fel ych chi'n gweld y split rhwng cyllido sector cyhoeddus, hynny yw grantiau llywodraeth a cynghorau i gymharu a beth ni'n disgwyl i'r sector breifat i gyfrannu tuag at yr 1.5 biliwn yna. Diolch.
Okay, Jonathan, do you want to come back on that? Hang on. Yeah, Helen, would you like to come in? I've seen your hand, Sean.
Yeah, okay. Diolch Cynghorydd Price am y cwestiwn. Ni'n hollol hyblyg gyda hwn, gyda split rhwng y sector private a'r sector cyhoeddus. Ni'n gwbl hyblyg. Beth ni yn gobeithio wneud yw lobio y ddwy Llywodraeth Prydeinig a Llywodraeth Cymru mwyn creu y pot hyn, a hefyd edrych ar unrhyw fuddsoddiad oddi wrth y sector private. So, mae'r ffynonellau ariannu yn newid trwy'r amser, felly byddwn ni'n disgwyl o fewn y 5 mlynedd nesaf, bydd arian cyhoeddus a arian preifat yn dod mewn yn gyfartebol, byddwn ni'n gobeithio. Felly, gwyn ni weld. Os jyst hefyd, buon ni edrych ar y pot hyn yr un peth sydd yn digwydd yn Gaerdydd, yn y Cardiff Capital Region yn Gaerdydd. Mae pot debyg gyda nhw a ariannwyd hwnna trwy y City Deal. So mae hwnna yn rhyw fath o benchmark i ni, really. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Helen. I mean, can I just come in there? I mean, from what Jonathan said in his presentation about the 1.5 billion investment fund, it was indicative that was, what you said was that what you've already identified as existing funding from various places and being repackaged. It's not that it's new money. This isn't new money. This is being presented as a fund collecting the different potential pots of funding and investment that you've identified could work. That was what you said, wasn't it? It's not new money.
My My belief is that this is new money. This isn't about repackaging. So this is an ask. So it's a proposed funding ask. A devolved funding ask going for the future. This is in part, I suppose, sort of the one way to look at it is Swansea Bay City deal type 2, a new investment fund, sort of building upon what has previously been received, and to provide a bit more autonomy and flexibility in the future.
None of which is secured. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a potential of something, but there's nothing just yet, right?
No, that's correct. But I think there's a strong belief, and there's a strong belief, and I think the context sort of highlights that several areas are also sort of moving in this way, and I think the ask is of government at the moment, and that sort of devolved ask is necessary.
Okay, yeah. Well, I certainly believe there's some potential in the near future for Wales to get more of what it deserves, but we'll see, I suppose. Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. Councillor Percy, you've been very patient. Would you like to come in?
No problem, Cadeirydd, thank you. Yeah, just a couple of points. Firstly, just on that last discussion around the funding. I mean, from my point of view, I prefer it to happen this way round, where the region comes together, looks at its own priorities, and then lobbies for the funding, rather than us receiving funding in that sort of top-down manner, where we get a pot of funding and we're scrambling around trying to fit the criteria. So I think, although it is a bit, it's not the way we normally do these things. We normally get a funding pot, don't we, drop from the sky, and then work towards it. I think if we can pull this off and secure it, I think it is a better way of ensuring that it meets the needs and priorities of the region. So my only question is, in terms of the project pipeline that's referenced in the report, there's a sort of summary given, but not a full project pipeline and list of projects. Is that published anywhere at the moment? If it isn't, when we able to sort of see that, I think it would just give us a more detailed flavour of the full breadth. I know there were some examples given in the document, but that I don't think covered the full 45 projects or whatever that was. So I don't know if anybody can give me an indication. Yeah.
Yeah, John, yeah, that's right. I think there's sometimes sort of a danger in printing this or writing it down to say this is what's happening. So the core sort of spreadsheet that underpins that has been provided to officers, and that sort of sits side by side with the REDP spreadsheet. So I'm sure officers can certainly sort of share that with you. It's sort of categorised by area, by theme, and can be sort of broken down.
Yeah, I think that would be really appreciated if that could be arranged by the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Happy with that. There seems to be a problem. Sorry, just on the chat in the group, Alison. A couple of members have said that they've got issues with translation. Can I just remind members that if you go to more, click on choose language and speech interpretation, change it from original to choosing English and confirm, you should be able to get the translation. Maheen, it worked for me, but
the only other thing I can suggest just briefly, if members were struggling, just leave the meeting and rejoin and see if that reboots the translation.
Okay, thank you for that, Alison. If you could do that, then please, both of you. Thank you. So apologies for that. So, Councillor Percy, could you just repeat your that final point, just because I got distracted by the translation issues. So.
Yeah, that's no problem. It was just that ask around the project pipeline, that could be circulated through you as the chair. That's all it was. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, Councillor Percy. Thank you. We'll do that if we can, please. Yeah, I mean it's on page, not to labour the point, but it's on page is it 64 in the pack? Yeah, 64 at the top where it says item 6, the proposed 1.5 billion South West Wales Investment Fund is not currently secured funding. it represents a scale of long-term capital. And I agree with Councillor Percy that, you know, the idea of us reversing the trend and trying to have a vision together for a Swansea Bay City Deal version 2, I suppose, is a good one, with if we can focus on that. And certainly we've achieved a lot, haven't we, with Swansea Bay City Deal version 1, not least Pentrell Owl and Clonethley, the wonderful new leisure facility there. So okay, Councillor John, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and yeah, good report. I think it's very, very positive. Apology if I repeat anything because I can't get the translation service working for some reason. On just a question and a statement really, but on 2.1, Mission 1, powering UK's energy transition, and it says about UK's drive for energy security and low carbon transition, that sort of thing. Just want to ask or check there's no sort of duplication with what the Freeport will be doing. I don't like duplication in things. I think people should be able to work together and streamline things. So just want to confirm that really. And the other thing in the summary and the introduction, it says about the strong road, rail and sea links to major UK cities, and I do appreciate that the M4 and another road and rail is good, but if you ever try to come down to Pembrokeshire by train, you'll find you're on and off buses, or if you can get it in fact. And I know the regional transport plan has been agreed, and there are measures in that to increase trains and improve roads, but I do think there needs to be more investment in the main rail network and indeed the main road through, because if you try to come through Carmarthen to get down to Pembrokeshire, sometimes of the year you'll be queuing up for 40-50 minutes just to get in to the roundabout at Pensan. Is it Pensan? I can't remember the big roundabout. I can't remember the name of it now, sorry. But it just needs to be that investment to tee in with all this, in my view. Thank you.
Just yeah, if you do get to the Carmarthen, obviously, Councillor John, I'd recommend that people turn right instead of left and go into the town and enjoy the oldest city, the oldest town in Wales, and enjoy some of the delights that we have to offer. But yeah, then perhaps continue your journey down to sunny Pembrokeshire. But you know, don't miss out on Carmarthen on the way. I would say that's always my advice. Jonathan, did you want to come back?
I used to work in Carmarthen, Councillor Sparks, so I do know quite a bit about the town.
Thank you, Councillor John. Jonathan, did you want to come in?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, a really important point around the road and rail connections. I think there's also sort of the relative sort of aspect. So I'm actually calling in from Cornwall today, and I think sort of comparatively, it sort of highlights the strength of South West Wales in comparison to certain other areas of the UK. So there's sort of that, but I also agree. Yeah, investment needs to be made in strategic infrastructure to unlock that growth, which is why that proposed fund needs to sort of come forward. Your point around the Freeport as well, we've been sort of close, having close discussions around where this goes, and I think very positive discussions really as a layer of strategic documents, but also sort of almost sort of shining a further light on the Freeport and the opportunities there, but certainly no duplication. So thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone. I think we've had an interesting discussion about this morning. We are required to consider the recommendation and endorse the strategy as per our pack on page 29. Is anyone willing to propose that we accept the recommendation? Diolch yn Cynghorydd Price. Anyone happy to second?
Happy Sailor, happy second.
Diolch. Diolch. Sure. So can we all vote, please? Can I remind you to choose your electronic hand, like I said in the briefing earlier? Not that I'm going to be a strict chair, but you know, if you could, thank you. Okay.
I can confirm that's 7 have voted for, Chair.
Thank you. If we could lower our hands, please. Thank you. Anyone against?
I can see 1 against, Chair.
We've got 1, Councillor John against. Okay.
Sorry, I put my hand up to agree. I hadn't taken it down. Sorry.
Okay, that's 8 for then.
Just check. I just thought I'd double check that, Councillor John. Thank you. And any abstentions? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan and Helen. Much appreciated. We will move on to item 6, I think. Just double check my notes. Sorry. Bear with me. Yeah, item 6, the Local Growth Fund. We've got recommendation for this on page 147, but I think I'm going to be handing over to Paul. Ref, is that correct, Alison?
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll walk quickly through the report and then happy to take any questions. So it is timely in the sense of the presentation you've just had from Jonathan on the investment plan, which sits alongside the economic delivery plan, which I guess is the more detailed economic framework that builds on. You'll be aware also of the Shared Prosperity Fund delivery that's been going on for the past 4 years. So one of the successor programs to Shared Prosperity Funds is what's called the Local Growth Fund. It's not a complete replacement as such for Shared Prosperity Funds. It's quite a different approach from the new UK government. It is now channeled through the Welsh Government, not directly to local government as SPF was. And the working model at the moment is that Welsh Government for year 1 are intending that as far as possible, the existing SPF architecture is used in the region. In this region, we, over the past 4 years, have used a series of anchor projects, planned at regional level, but with local allocations and local delivery. And we're proposing as best we can with the money available to continue that structure, slightly refined. There is an expectation in years 2 and 3 that the CJC take a greater role in the governance of the programme. I think I'd say we already to a great extent do operate in that way, but there's an expectation of firming that up further. One element that we have already exceeded in this region is that there's an expectation of a long-term economic delivery plan. Given that we've just completed that task, there's a proposal to allocate 200k for us to do that task. Given that we've done it, the recommendation is, as has already been alluded to, revenue position is extremely tight, but that does get delegated back into programme management across the region, across the 4 local authorities, so that the programme can be delivered effectively. We do have that refreshed economic delivery plan now and the associated pipeline going with it. We're proposing as well a refinement of the anchor project approach. So that's the 3 main themes being supporting business, local economic infrastructure, and skills and employability, as those themes serve economic growth, rooted back to key teams in each of the local authorities. One other difference from the way SPF was allocated although in year 1 the funding allocation is broadly based on the proportions as they would have been with SPF, allowing for top slices for the Prize in Place programme. There isn't any formal local allocation per local authority. There is only a regional sum being allocated. So it's based on proportions, built up from what would have been SPF, but also there's a significant shift to capital. So it's more of a 30% revenue, 70% capital position, which does put a significant constraint on the revenue available for the programme. I've outlined briefly in Table 1 the indicative headlines for each of the anchor projects, and these are still very much headlines at this stage. There hasn't been a huge amount of time to work through this, but what I would advise is that there is a significant pipeline of activity set out in the economic delivery plan, which has recently been refreshed, and I think those pressures are pretty well understood across the region and certainly at local level, and the principal mode of delivery will still be local, and a large part of the design of this is to make sure the local capacity developed under Shared Prosperity Fund as it serves this economic growth agenda is maintained, particularly the business support element and placemaking activity, which has been really strong. And I guess going forward, there's hopefully a better opportunity now in this structure to integrate better with the Welsh Government, key Welsh Government departments, to work more effectively than was possible with Shared Prosperity Fund previously. The indicative financial profile is set out in table 3, just to give an idea. That is indicative at this stage. And obviously behind the scenes then there are local components of that, but there is definitely a sense that in years 2 and 3 particularly, that we'd be looking at more at regional level activity, and that's something we'll have to work through over the next few months. There will be a 6-month review once the programme has been up and running up until about September, and then we see where we go from years 2 and 3 onwards. We have made the case that we need to deliver for 3 years if this is to be meaningful, in the sense of capital projects don't happen that quickly. So we are continuing to make that case, and we do have a 3-year investment plan document behind the scenes ready to go, on the assumption that we can get that agreed with Welsh Government in the next few months. And there are some recommendations there as well for you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that summary, Paul. It's very helpful. Do you have a few questions? Councillor Percy, would you like to start?
Yes, thanks, Jen. Thanks, Paul, for the summary there. Yeah, my first question is sort of touching on what you just spoke around in terms of the allocations and that transition year, initial allocations of funding with Swansea being the lead body, and that intention to move further into the CJC in years 2 and 3. I know you mentioned there's going to be sort of a review period as well, but have we had any indication from Welsh Government that they might be open to us maintaining those transition arrangements for the whole of the fund? Because that's my understanding of what we're asking.
Yes, yeah, I think they're open to that, and the recommendation is that because of the success of the approach over the past 4 years, it makes sense to go with what works. Obviously, there'd be refinements once we have a better understanding of exactly how the new programme will land, but I think the preference would be that we maintain the status quo for the programme periods, because ultimately it's funding the machinery that feeds the discussion we had on the previous item and wider, ultimately. So more of a refinement than a complete sea change, because I guess there's also the question of, the length of time it will take to develop those functions at region, and is it good use of public money to, you've already raised that point. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, I guess. Hence the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I got another question, Chair. Is that okay?
Yeah, please go ahead, Sean.
Brilliant. So yeah, look, that makes sense in terms of the response there. On the regional local growth fund plan, so that's what's referred to on page 151, and again you mentioned that in your intro there. We've obviously looked at the previous item on the agenda, and as you said, we've done a lot of this work already. Do we know whether the regional investment strategy work that we've done fully meets the criteria of what Welsh Government are expecting for the local growth fund plan? I know broadly it seems to be the same thing, but are we aware that this, sometimes these things can be quite specific, can't they, in terms of what they want us to do, how they want us to do it, and the consultation processes, etc. So I'm just wondering if we're confident that that work we've already done is going to suffice, and then obviously that £200,000, as you said, great, that can be rolled into other functions, can't it?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. The feedback so far is positive. The draft document, it's still draft at this point, up until such time as through the various delegations the document can be properly considered. But there are no showstoppers in the document from Welsh Government's perspective. They're happy with what they've read. They're aware that we have a 3-year vision for the fund itself, and that our vision goes well beyond that. And we're in a good state of preparedness for this. And we'll study, your comments on the previous item was well made. And I guess the fact we have the economic delivery plan in place does mean that when these things do come, yes, it's top down, but we're ready to respond, and the alignment is really strong. The revenue is a bit of a pinch point because the balance is a lot more difficult. That does have consequences more widely for the type of projects that people expect to be able to deliver. but equally across the UK, it's not being done in this way. There are some areas get nothing, so at least there is some level of funding happening across Wales, which isn't the case elsewhere in the UK, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Happy there with that?
Just one brief comment, Chair, if that's okay.
Okay, carry on. I thought it might be one. See, I'm learning.
Yeah, no, that again, that does make sense. I think we, you know, if Welsh Government are taking that perhaps pragmatic approach there, that is welcome. I think, you know, the only thing, you know, we've discussed this in Neath or Talbot, I'm sure other councils have around that, you know, the change in revenue and capital focus from, you know, SPF. There are implications, aren't there, on programs, pieces of work that individual authorities are going to have to try and pick up and manage. And the only sort of question I had is whether we are going to look at some of those implications regionally as well, because, you know, we've been looking at it through that lens of, okay, we've got staff whose funding are running out. Can we put them into another role? Can we continue that piece of work? But those conversations will be happening separately across the local authorities. And I'm just wondering whether that sort of bit of transition of some of that good work that we know we want to try and continue, whether we've had that conversation as a region together.
Yeah, there's certainly more work to do on that. Broadly, the position as proposed, that the figures are based on trying to retain that capacity and trying to retain the expertise. There are certain elements that are probably more than the money that's available, but there are other funding opportunities coming along. So certainly the skills, for example, there's a working group meeting around the regional learning and skills partnership to look at that specific issue and also the implications for colleagues in further education and some of the partners there as well. It is challenging, but equally, even looking back to the previous item, all of that does weave into this narrative. So we're doing our best to make sure that all the capacity we can, as much of the capacity as possible, is retained as far as it can be directed to this new programme. It's challenging, I have to say that, but broadly it does appear to be heading in the right direction. I think perhaps to add, Councillor, it's probably important to say as well, I think there's going to be an expectation, which is difficult given the way we're structured as organisations, that there will be more regional pieces of work coming forward over the programme period. So we're looking potentially at a skills element of this as a regional activity, which is a completely new approach. It's a very small sum of funding against the whole, but it does put the money back through a regional lens, which would be an interesting test case to trial the approach and then work through the governance of that, which I know is a concern. But it has to involve local cabinets and the corporate joint committee together, I would say, as a double lock on the decision making.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Percy. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for your patience. Councillor Howlett, would you like to come in now with your question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. On page 151, table 3, the financial profile. Obviously, there's some big items there, multi-million pound items. The one that got my attention though is the bottom figure, 4%. Management fee brackets up to, which equates to just under £1.6 million for each of the 3 years. I appreciate we're in the early stages, but I just want to know, up to could be anything up to that figure. Clearly we need some management, but every pound spent in management reduces the amount that could be spent on the projects. So just given it is early days, if there could be any indication of slightly better sort of costing of that. And I suppose I'm not overly familiar with projects of this nature. Is up to 4% comparable to similar projects? Is my second question. Thank you.
Sure. That's a really good question, Councillor. I'm actually going to start with the latter first, because it's important. Normally, previous programmes it would be 10% plus, sometimes up to 25%. So 4% is, dare I say, it's almost shoestring. The figures indicated are maintaining the capacity we have currently across the region, on the basis that we've worked the approach we've taken with the Swansea Programme Management is to work collaboratively with all 4 LAs and to have a delegated team in each LA to make sure there is that local capacity. It's really important from my point of view that we have both, that it's not just centralised, that there is a dispersed management approach, which has been really effective with SPF. It does mean local decision making is stronger, albeit it does still sit in a regional context, and we have to have the capacity to move all that stuff around the system. It may be possible to refine that figure, and I would see probably some of the individuals that are currently at that level also integrating into the anchor delivery side of things as well as time goes on, because arguably there'll be fewer overall projects, but there'll be more investments to be made through each of the anchor projects, if that makes sense. So, but we do still need that local engagement. It's really, really important from our point of view in the programme management in Swansea. We can't do without it. That the local intelligence is really important in programme management, if that makes sense. Is that okay?
Okay, Councillor Howlett, thank you. Maurice Price.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll ask in English just to make sure that I'm not sure if the translation issue has been fixed. So in terms of table 2, obviously we know that there are what should I say, frustrations in terms of the level, the total level of funding we're getting, you know, when we compare to where we've been under EU structural funds and even the previous SPF funding under the previous UK government. And I understand that there's an element of prescription here in terms of the revenue capital split in terms of the table that we see on page 150. I'm just wondering, is there any flex in that split between capital and revenue, or is it very prescriptive? So how much flexibility is the first question? And the second element I've got is clearly the previous SPF model enabled us to support not just businesses but third sector organisations, particularly in terms of the revenue funding. You know, if we're seeing cuts here, have we quantified the impact, you know, in terms of impact assessments? Have we quantified to what extent some organisations will lose out, you know, in terms of that revenue funding? Can we put a figure on that? Because I know, as Sean mentioned, yes, we've got some staff linked to local authorities, we've got businesses, but we also got third sector partners. And I think it would be useful for us to understand really what the context is, you know, in terms of that impact. Jack.
Sure. Yeah, so the capital revenue split is fixed. We can't change it. There has been, to be fair to Welsh Government as well, they have lobbied quite hard to try to get that position changed. Whether that will change, I know there are further representations being made constantly on that matter, but at the moment, the position is they're adamant it's as it stands with the 70-30. As regards the third sector community fallout, we haven't quantified it specifically, but we have got that data available, effectively supporting communities anchor projects across the region, plus any third-party open call projects that took place that were revenue dependent. We can get that information for you. It's a substantial amount. And there's a presumption that the Pride in Place programme picks that up, but the Pride in Place programme is the neighbourhood programme is very, very targeted on smaller areas, isn't it? So it's not a complete replacement of the supporting communities elements of SPF, but there is a significant drop there.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Darren. You happy with the answers there? Come back. No, you're happy. Okay. Right. Councillor Cundy, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Russell. Always patient. I was just wondering, I'm just trying to clarify a few things. If the funding now is not coming directly to the councils, obviously we've got a big change probably happening in a few weeks' time in the Welsh Government. Do our plans that we're looking at here and everything, do we have the flexibility of a change of emphasis in funding of particular areas? So if that emphasis changes, are we flexible enough to deal with it? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I would say the system of delegations we're agreeing with local cabinets are designed for exactly that reason, and also then to seek the endorsement for those changes at CJC level afterwards. The headings are broad, and they also tie in with the economic strategy for the region, which is a 10-year document agreed by all of yourselves. So yes, we do have the flexibility, Councillor, to face that eventuality, and the structure itself could cope with any number of potential governance changes or any other. It's based on the framework the region has worked to for many years consistently. So in that respect, it would be adaptable.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cundy. Thank you again, Paul. Thanks for answering the questions. So, team, we've got several recommendations that we need to vote on. If you turn to page 147, we've got the Swansea Council is delegated as a lead authority for the duration of the LGF programme period, 3 years, on behalf of South West Region. That's A. B is that the 200,000 capacity funding that's been identified earlier in the discussions be utilised to support the existing LA programme management function to reduce revenue pressure. C, the outline of the proposed anchor projects and initial proposed budget allocations as we've discussed them. And D, the proposed regional national funding working framework. And E, the proposed anchor project selection process. It's those three anyway. Moving on, that's the recommendations. Is anyone happy to propose that we accept them?
Hapus i gefnogi, thank you.
Oh, diolch, thank you. And Councillor Cundy, are you happy to second? So, diolch yn fawr pawb. So if that's been proposed, so can we vote, please, if we support that proposal? Always forget me, sorry, I'm voting for it as well.
I can see 9 in favour. Oh, it's gone 9 in favour, Chair, so that's unanimously supported.
Let's go with 9, unanimously supported. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul. And we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. So, item 7, which is the SDP Strategic Development Plan Delivery Agreement, which you'll find in your pack on page 157 to 340. Nicola, I believe you're going to be leading on.
So Nicola's sent her apologies, Chair, so I believe Kerry Morris and Lana Bindon are on the call.
There we are, Kerry, over to you, please. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No problem. Yeah, I'll give a brief summary, Chair, for members of the committee this morning, and there's more than one officer on the call. So if there are any questions beyond that, we'd be happy to take them. Does Councillor Simpson have a question, or is that a legacy hand, or?
I think it might be a legacy hand.
Okay, I'll continue that. Okay, so in terms of the report before members, then it seeks to provide an update for members following the consultation on the draft delivery agreement. It also seeks endorsement of an updated version of the delivery agreement prior to consideration of the CJC later this month. And it also seeks views on a couple of options around funding, which I'll come on to in more detail now shortly. But the public consultation finished on the 20th of February. And given the procedural nature of the document, we didn't anticipate a high volume of representations. And that is indeed the experience that local planning authorities have had when they've taken similar documents through public consultation for their LDPs. But we did receive a number of representations, and those are set out in full for members of the committee to review in Appendix 1, along with our responses to those comments. In the main, the comments didn't seek any particular amendments to the delivery agreement in terms of its wording and content, but a lot of the comments did seek clarification on a number of the key issues. So as a consequence, there was no real need to significantly amend the wording of the delivery agreement as it was drafted. Broadly, there was support for the scope of the community involvement scheme, along with the timetable associated with the SDP work programme. But I think the bigger question revolved around the financial resources, and I know this particular committee raised similar concerns prior to the public consultation stage. So in terms of the final financial aspects then and the implications, members will of course be aware that the CJC has already set its budget for the 2026-27 financial year, and the STP work stream was allocated around 22k for that financial year. Now, informal discussions that we've had with Welsh Government, it became pretty clear quite quickly that on that basis of the finances alone, it didn't give Welsh Government sufficient assurance that we would be able to progress the work programme and deliver upon the statutory responsibilities that we have in terms of the STP work programme. And that position was then subsequently confirmed in Welsh Government's response to the consultation. So the position that we currently have is that in light of that Welsh Government position, there is now a need to review the financial position as set out, and ultimately the ability for the CJC to formally submit the delivery agreement to Welsh Government for approval is therefore sort of subject to sort of the CJC meeting some additional funding commitment for initially 2026-2027, and then to build future financial resources and into the medium-term financial planning process. And then with that process, then the finances can be reviewed year on year. So as I said at the outset, the report, Chair, does present a couple of options for members' consideration, and they relate specifically for the 2026-27 financial year. And Stephen initially in his report earlier did refer to some of these options for consideration, and what they present. And given the inability now of the CJC to reopen the debate around the finances for next financial year, the two options relate to the release of a figure from the CJC reserves. So option one commits to a release of 200k from CJC reserves for the next financial year. And when you combine that with the already allocated 22k plus the then ability to draw down on the Welsh Government incentivisation grant of 200k, that would give a total CJC spend of 422k for the financial year. Option two, Chair, can you still hear me? Because my screen is frozen.
Yeah, Kerry, I can hear you loud and clear. No problem.
Okay,
Carry
I'll
on.
continue. Sorry. So option two then is a slightly larger release of reserves at 300k, and again, when you combine that with the two elements, that would bring in a total of 522k for the next financial year. But what's perhaps important, Chair, for me to clarify for members this morning is the Welsh Government incentivisation grant of 200k is a one-off grant. It's not something that we'll be able to draw down on an annual basis. So the total figures above in each of the two options would be essentially ongoing expenditure then for the CJC. And that would then need to be sort of considered as part of the levy cost applied to the constituent local authorities going forward. So in summary, Chair, the both options demonstrate to Welsh Government long-term commitment of STP development, and that will enable us then, once submitted, if members of the CJC do approve the document, Welsh Government had indicated they will be in a position to approve the document with this revised financial position. Option one, though, is presented as the preferred option, and that's purely on the basis that option one would give the CJC a little bit more flexibility around considering the level of expenditure for the next subsequent financial year in 27-28 and beyond thereafter. So that's all I really wanted to cover, Chair, in my summary. But as I said, there's a number of us on the call, so we'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Kerry. Just to confirm that with option one, the reason it's the preferred option is because of the ongoing consequence to the levy in the future years.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's why we're looking at 200 as opposed to 300.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Percy, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Gary, again for the introduction there. Two questions from me. One is in relation to the consultation responses, noting that Neath Talbot Council didn't have any response to the consultation on the SDP. I think one of the other councils didn't as well. Maybe I'll assume that's because of our involvement in preparing it in the first place, but I'd appreciate a bit of clarity or comfort as a Neath Talbot member that we have had sufficient input and opportunity there. And I'll I'll let you respond to that one before I ask my second question, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Yeah. I mean, as I said, you'll be aware, of course, that Charlotte Harding, the officer on the call, has been seconded to the CJC. Charlotte's substantive post is part of the Neath Talbot's local development plan team. So we've essentially been very much part and parcel of bringing this or leading on this piece of work coming forward. So hopefully that gives you some reassurance, Councillor Percy, that yes, we've certainly had full sight of what's coming forward as part of this report.
Suspected as such, but it's always worth checking, isn't it? There we are. My second question. I feel like maybe a little bit of a broken record because I've asked this one a few times, but I'm gonna have to keep asking it, I'm afraid. And that's about resourcing and staffing the SDP process. Again, it's referenced in the report. We know the issues there. I just wondered whether we've made any progress in how we're going to approach it, and whether that's mapping across the region what the capacity is in local councils, where the issues are. I referenced in our pre-brief to other members, we've had issues in Neath Talbot, haven't we, with staff in planning departments over time, which we've worked hard to resolve. And I just wondered whether we've got that clear picture. I know we've sort of said we know there's a lack of skilled staff in the region, but how clear a picture have we got, and what actions are we looking to take? Because the people will underpin all of this, of course, because we need these people to do the work, don't we? So without addressing that problem, we're going to really struggle here, aren't we? So I know I've asked it before, but
yeah,
made any progress? Yeah.
No, the question remains as relevant today as it has been all along, Councillor Percy. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's probably now a challenge for Chris Owen in his new role. How the CJC will move this forward. What the delivery agreement does is it sets out the structure of what will be the core team to deliver upon the SDP work programme. It'll now be a decision for the CJC as should we get agreement from the full CJC on the 24th and we submit and Welsh Government approve, then the clock starts ticking in terms of delivering on the SDP work programme. And clearly one of the key priorities from the get-go really is to get staff with sufficient experience in post to drive this work programme forward. And that is one very much for as I say, for perhaps Chris and colleagues to work through and how we take that forward. But as I've said before, Councillor Percy and members, as I said, planning officers with the experience to deliver what is a very, intense, comprehensive and onerous work programme. It is a finite resource, and what you may very well find is that when the CJC looks to appoint staff to these roles, they ultimately, and no doubt will probably end up being drawn from constituent individual local planning teams, which will then create a problem and a challenge for those individual authorities, because of course the LDP work programmes will continue in parallel to this regional work programme. So yeah, there's certainly no easy answer to the question that you've asked, Councillor Percy, but it's certainly very pertinent, certainly.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Councillor John, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I got a couple of points and questions, and I'm with Councillor Percy on this. We're both like broken records, I think, because the staffing, funding and everything for this is still very dubious. And thanks for the report, Kerry. It's very, very thorough. And it might be worth a reminder for everybody how much is this going to cost in total at the end. I mean, if I remember, it was something like 4.5 million. I might be wrong on that, but that's a lot of money to dive into this when councils are already having to spend money on their emerging LDP2s if they haven't done it already. Example now in Pembrokeshire, and my colleagues from Pembrokeshire correct me if I'm wrong, because of the nitrate issue and the problems with all planning being put on hold at the moment. I think it's something like 400,000 got to be spent on consultants just to try and overcome that, and to ask councils then to raise their levies to fund this Welsh Government, I say policy, I could use other words, but to ask councils to have to raise their levies to try and fund that when they're also trying their best to ensure existing development goes ahead along with the local development plan too, I think is a bit unrealistic. I really think Welsh Government, if they want CJCs to be doing this work, have got to fund more than what's been offered now, 200,000 matching fund or whatever that was. I don't think that's nearly enough from them. And again, with a change probably in May, there may be a change in direction on that. Those points were mentioned in pages 159 and 160 on the bullet points. But just another point on this, it says in there, and I read the consultation responses as well, Swansea Bay University Hospital Board wishes to explore opportunities to align the SDP with the health board plans. Well, yeah, very, very good and very, very sensible. But please correct me if I've missed it, but have Hywel Dda been consulted as well? Because I'm sure they would as well. And Hywel Dda covers 2 of the counties of the CJC, so I mean, surely can't all be about Swansea Bay Health Board unless there's plans within the health system to change the health boards altogether as well. I might have missed that, I don't know. I think that's my point, other than in all the consultations, there's a very varied range of people who were consulted, and there's one in my ward which was he said it was a local gardening group or something like that, but I know within that village and other villages there's other gardening groups, history societies, everything else. I would just like to know how those consultees were selected, or was it just they were the ones who responded? Just a bit of clarification on those points, but total cost would be a good start. Just a reminder on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor John. Do you want to come in and answer that, Kerry?
Yeah, I got just if I pick up on the total cost question at the moment, and I can see Charlotte's got a hand up, so she can perhaps come in and address the sort of consultee issue. But yes, the initial cost is estimated around, of the total work program, we're talking anything between 3.5 and 4.5 million. I think that's a sort of an agreed rough estimate of the figure that will cost, because, as I say, we've said before that the SDP program is very, very much the same and is largely an identical process of replacement local development plans. So it's, there are a number of key stages to go through. There will be a need to develop evidence base that supports the policies and proposals that come forward. So it is a huge undertaking and a significant financial impact and implications as a consequence. So, as I say, regardless of whether members today and indeed the committee agree at this stage to the options that we're putting forward at this stage, clearly it'll be an ongoing role for both officers and members alike to continue to lobby Welsh Government going forward in terms of how this significant substantive work programme will be developed and funded going forward. And as you say, Councillor, that there very well be changes ahead in the next few weeks, depending on how things transpire with the Senate elections. Charlotte, did you want to come in and cover the consultation queries, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Kerry. Just to give members some reassurance around the consultees, and Welsh Government actually define who we should consult in the SDP regulations, and it's also agreed that the local authorities and the national parks have a role to play in shaping those consultee lists. So as part of this consultation, we have liaised with the leads of the local planning authorities and the national parks who have helped shape those lists. So they are very varied, they are very wide-reaching, and we want to try and reach as many consultees as possible to be involved in the process. And also members of the public can request to be added or taken off the consultation database at any time. So thank you very much on that point.
Thank you for that, Charlotte. Thank you, Kerry. Councillor John, did you want to come back?
Yeah, if I could just ask then, I mean, were Hywel Dda consulted, being that they cover half the CJC?
Sorry, yes, they were.
And
A range of health representatives were consulted,
okay.
And that is the response that we received from that particular body. But yes, they were consulted.
I think Councillor John's point is that there's just that they're not mentioned in the summative comments on page 160, isn't it? You know, and
I think that's accurate. Yeah, and if you want to move forward with people's views, I mean, I'm for the lower fund being put forward myself, but appreciating others will have different views on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. Okay. Right, so there is a certain level of urgency to this because we want to make sure that we don't, if I quote the report, we don't give Welsh Government any reason to be having an impact in their confidence in the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee. So we do need to make a decision today because, as I mentioned in the pre-brief, the Strategic Development Plan Delivery Agreement will be going to Joint Committee on the 24th of March for immediate implementation in order to secure the funding. So that being said, I don't see any hands up, so I'm just going to remind everyone we've got option 1 as the main recommendation, but bear with me a second. I think my iPad's trying to. I know we're okay. So we've got the review of the STP delivery agreement and endorsing the STP delivery agreement appendix 2 ahead of seeking endorsement. An agreement subject to Welsh Government to submit to Welsh Government for approval after the CJC on the 24th. And of the 2 option funds, we've got the preferred option of option 1. So can I assume everyone's happy that we go with option 1 as the preferred option? Nobody would like us to commit further resources from our constituent authorities. Yeah, that looks good. So we've got a couple of people have proposed there, Alison, in briefly. So if we can vote on it, please. If we're happy to accept the recommendation, can you all raise your hands?
I can see 9 for, Chair, so that's unanimously supported.
Okay, so hopefully we can that message of support to TJC can go forward, and we wish them all success with the STP implementation, and that the Welsh Government won't have any reason to lack confidence in us as a CJC. Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's item 7. So and thank you for the contributions there, Kerry and Charlotte. If I move on now to item 8, urgent items. There are no urgent items, you'll be delighted to hear. So thank you very much for attending this morning's meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Sean, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand? Yeah, it's gone. I think. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'll close the meeting and wish you all a happy day. Thank you.
Cheers, thanks, Russell.
Thanks all.